Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Rosie, for the very wonderful presentation and introduction for me as well. Actually, I'm really honored and delighted that I will be the first speaker to kickstart this wonderful event. And what I try to do is to take off a little bit my professional hat and put my academic hat to bring the theoretical development of the concept and to see the please think of it as a rounded thing, as a multidisciplinary thing, as a brainstorming. I will not have answers. I rather raise possibilities. I will raise questions and potentials where cultural heritage can open the door for objectives of soft power, facilitating cultural diplomacy policies. In this presentation, actually, I will be talking about culture, and then I will be talking about heritage. Then I will look at the values and meanings that culture and heritage can construct. And then I will look at how they are connected to cultural diplomacy. So basically the link to cultural diplomacy. Then I will see how much they are relevant and what are the points that they are few. And you can also, I'm sure during the 3 days, you can see also other possibilities. That's why I'm saying take my presentation as a brainstorming or as a corridor with a lot of doors where you can open many doors to different things if you like to investigate more on an academic or professional way. Then I will conclude with some remarks, and definitely I will also look at the limitation of cultural heritage or culture in general, because yes, we are dreamers. I'm sure that everybody in this room is a dreamer. That's why we are all here. We want to change the world, but we have also to be smart dreamers. So we have also to see what are the limitations and what are the obstacles that we need to look at when we think of cultural heritage or culture or art as a vehicle for soft power objectives and mobilizing cultural diplomacy. To start with, in the introduction, I basically did the introduction. I just gave the example of Khan Asad Basha in all Damascus, and it was the whole theme in the whole time, not because I'm only, I'm Syrian and Syria is in war and cultural diplomacy is needed. That's one point, but also because the place itself represents heritage in different perspectives. It is a building, it's a monument, plus it has a whole idea of transformation of cultural practices, of values, of patterns, it had a meaning and it has a function in the past, and that's why it is also a place where intangible heritage can thrive and can exchange and can transform from one generation to another. As well as this place now is a kind of a cultural center in all Damascus. Despite the war, this place is still active and still produce art and culture. It can host a lot of art exhibitions. So basically, this place for me is a symbol of the whole presentation because it is a monument, it is intangible heritage, it is a place or a platform for interaction and for mobilizing cultural diplomacy using and mobilizing contemporary art and culture. So that's my introduction. That's a little bit not related, but I'm just telling you why I chose that as a theme for the presentation. To start then, let's start with culture. Culture is such a complex and multi-layered concept as it can be seen and viewed from different points of views. Culture, as Per Williams, is one of the 2 or 3 most complicated words in the English language. The biggest challenge remains to narrow the concept of culture so that it includes less and reveals more. As Roger argues, there are 4 focal areas when thinking of culture. Culture as a system of society-transmitted behaviors, culture change as a process of adaptation, technology, substance, economy, and elements of social organization, and also culture as a system of ideas. So basically, culture can be from different perspectives, from different ways, and from different theories as well. Culture is also seen as a process of a human self-making and as a fundamental social process of word-making. Culture has been used to mark differences among societies and people's lifestyle as subculture aspects of social life in the economy, media, or technology, or social activities. Grossberg also sees differences in the representation of culture. It can be visual culture, it can be audio culture, He also viewed culture as a signifier of dominance and an indicator of power dynamics that consist of flexible sets of behavior that can be self-managed or managed from above. Straub sees culture in different notions as shared values and problem solving. He also views culture abstractly and spiritually. He sees it as a complex whole which includes knowledge, beliefs, arts, morals, laws, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. Culture then reflects common experiences as it reflects shared motives and values and beliefs, and of course meanings. In the book, it's old book, but I find it very interesting for this beginning, like talking about culture, is the riding the wave of culture in managing cultural diversity, where it says there are 3 different layers when we talk about culture. The explicit layer that represents the product that culture can present, including art, culture and creative industries, food, architectural styles, and other explicit representations. The middle layer representing the norm and values of society, and the inner layer, which is the way a nation creates assumptions about their experience. So basically, as we see, there's a lot on it, and I try to bring different concepts and different theories about culture, but at the end, we can see that culture, we can look at it in different ways, as an input, as values, as meanings and beliefs, ideas and behaviors, as a process of adaptation, of self-making, word-making, make a difference, you name it, or as an output in terms of what we can see from the culture in general as technology, as substance, economy, activities, products, capitals, common art, many other, amongst many other. In this case, we can also need to see culture as a product of social construction. In another word, culture is a product of a society, and to be more precise, it's a product of people in the society. And since people are not only individuals, they live in the society, and their views, values, beliefs, and abilities are formed and sustained within social groups, families, and communities. Thus, they formate a distinct culture. Individuals are fundamentally socially embodied beings, and therefore it is important to see also the link between people and culture when we look at later on art or food or gastronomy or other examples in this beautiful forum. People's intrinsic paradigm allows the creation and the ability to influence broad trends in behavior that transcends into what we have today as culture. Here there's a very nice definition of culture by Santagata. Santagata is more into the cultural economics and how you can bring culture and cultural heritage, the values of it, into the society in order to gain sustainable development and to make like resilient communities somehow, but on an economic terms. However, he has a very interesting definition of culture. He called it as a testimony to people's civilization, and in this sense, a culture is made by ideas composed into science that can be written, designed, spoken, sang, craved, painted, designed, filmed, photographed, and broadcasted. So basically, from all that, we can also see culture as a creativity, a way of thinking, a process. We can see culture as heritage, as an input, like think of heritage as the input here, because I'm jumping to heritage later on, and culture as a product or the output, where art can go and where cooking can go on, where other things can get in this thing. So now let's go back to culture as heritage, the input, and go to heritage. Well, I cannot promise you that heritage is a way narrower than culture. It has also its own philosophers and thinkers and concept writers. That's why it's also like once you step in it, you kind of in a notion of other ideas. Again, they say there is really no such thing as heritage. They dare even to say that. The heritage is a multi-layered performance. It is a social and cultural process, and it is a political one. George Orwell said once, who controls the present controls the past. So we have to think of that. We have to think of powers when we think of heritage as well. Larkham argues that the concept of heritage is all things to all people, while Johnson and Thomas noted that the heritage is virtually anything by which some kind of link may be forged from the past. Generally speaking, it is difficult to give heritage a specific meaning. Therefore, I will look at heritage within different concepts, just to give like the ideas of where heritage can fit and where heritage can be useful for this forum and beyond for the students also. I know there are the students, so basically if any is interested, think of all these kind of things, it helps. Heritage as a process, we talked about it. Then we have like heritage as a product of modernity, or a modern choice, actually. We always transform the past to respond to our choice and our need in the present. Moreover, our hope in the future. We use the past and we misuse it sometimes. The history of heritage is a history of the present, because it is as well a historical narrative of an infinite succession of the present. Heritage exists in the present for future material and immaterial forms. If we go a little bit further, we can say also it is inspiring. Heritage can give us a source of inspiration, because it can provide us with examples of how to tackle a specific issue. How our ancestors managed to overcome disasters or challenges. It can be mobilized as a source of inspiration and hope as well. And there is this concept of duality of heritage, where I spend a lot of time in my research between the tangible and the intangible. And here also we need to think of heritage as a subject and an object. And when we talk about it in this way, the tangible heritage can be transformed into intangible, and the intangible cannot stand without the tangible, so they are extremely interconnected, and there's a lot of research in that concept. It is the transformation of understanding, experiencing, and imagining by using human sense. Such a transformation become an indicator and a parameter to justify and evaluate the contemporary scenarios, since the intangible is about conscious memories and feelings. Also, heritage is an heritage of experience. The heritage is linked through an experienced mental association of a human with their past and their attitude, crossing through their history. According to Smith, the stories and histories that have been told about a place that is considered a heritage, they are preserved in the memory of the human as much as the site itself. And as a Syrian, I would dare that this is very, very true. Like, there was a destruction in Palmyra, and we lost the biggest monuments in Palmyra. And there is a lot of discussion about shall we reconstruct the site and reserve the site as it was, or shall we keep it and give this extra layer? For me, it is a layer. We can maybe not touch it, but we can feel it, and it is in our memory, and it is about how we can transmit that memory to the future generation. It might be challenging, but I think it can stay, and the world has a lot of examples of lost monuments that are more remembered than the one that we can see and touch and visit on a daily basis. Also, we can talk about the heritage of identity. We need to remember that identity is being constructed, reconstructed, and contested. It's about a group of individuals that have layered identities and may belong to any number of communities. Further, any community may, with itself, have a layer or a range of sub-community identities. So it is definitely a work of layering, and it can be connecting, but it can also be pushing people away. The value of heritage in that is because it reflects what is representing which. So basically, this is something also interesting when we look at heritage later on in terms of cultural diplomacy and soft power, and how they can impact the society in that sense. Also, we have heritage of memory. Here Smith says something really interesting. It says heritage is not a site. It's not a thing. Rather, it is an activities that are happening around the site and inside it. It is the engagement of the act itself. It is a cultural process that engages with the memory of that work, which created this space. It is the past that is engaging or recreating in the future. There are many memories, as there are many groups in this world. That memory is by nature multiple and yet specific, collective, plural, and yet individual. History, on the other hand, belongs to everyone and to no one. Memory takes roots on the concrete in spaces, gestures, images, and objects. History binds itself strictly to temporal continuities. And memory is a combination of emotions that could be seen differently, and the memory connected to heritage is a collective one, and that's why we really need to look at heritage and memory and see why it is important, because it combines. It can make a kind of a power of bringing people together and combine them, because it's very collective. And so basically, these are the aspects that I think once we think of heritage, at least like the main one. There are many more, but just for the sake of the half an hour presentation, I kept it onto this. But then I left you without a definition of heritage. So what is heritage? I think the Faro definition of heritage has it all, maybe because it's one of the newest academic definitions of heritage. It says that heritage is a resource, it's a group of resources inherited from the past, people identify as a reflection of constantly evolving values, beliefs, knowledge, and traditions. And in this way, I think the definition of heritage can work as a tool and as a resource. The whole concept of resource is very, very important. I will not kill the concept of values and meaning. We will discuss that more here. So basically, as I said, the Faro definition position heritage as a resource to reconstruct our modern realities. So what heritage can provide us with is many things. I just put these also. They are not exclusive, but just to put some. Heritage can provide us with cultural values, with cultural capital, with emotional impact, with stimulation, with engagement, with knowledge, with risk, with authenticity, with learning possibilities, with challenges as well, with energy or with tension. It can also provide shared experiences. It has input on our personal responses and inspirations, empowerment and renewal, actualization, which is very, very important. If we want to motivate any group of people, we need to make them self-force, and they should be aware of that and should know why they exist. And that's why one of the biggest important impacts of heritage, I think, is that. Social skills and social capital as well, better relations and cohesion. Okay. Engaging with cultural heritage experiences can produce social value. This social value is a process of grassroots value creation, in a way. Because it creates people's feelings, attitudes, and motivation, people's behavior and participation, discourse and narration, capacity and access to resources, systems, policies, and conditions. This is from the Culture Works report, actually, in 2010. So, yeah, I just want to see which number is this. Yes. That's why I'm going to say that the value of cultural heritage is about the ability to affect change for people who experience heritage. And this change is not going to be targeting individuals. It will also target the whole society, and you will see in the next slides how affecting the individual by mobilizing heritage can affect the whole society as well. if we want to think of now, if culture and heritage has all these possibilities, has all these meanings, has all these values, then it has the possibility to make change. And within that change remains the concept of power and soft power. And just to start, and since I'm the first one, I would give you a little bit hints about how do we see here in the research in the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, soft power and cultural diplomacy. We have a very young cultural diplomat. Hello, cultural diplomat. Interesting. So basically, Nye talks about power in general as the ability to influence the behavior of others to get a desired outcome. So basically, it's about making change, a desired one, of course. We need to think of soft power as a bottom-up power of social actions and the power of systems and networks. And definitely, it's connected to the intangible attributes, to the cooperation and to the attraction. So basically, that's why it is very much connected to cultural diplomacy. And cultural diplomacy in its very traditional forms was about to manage the international environment through making its cultural resources and achievements known overseas and facilitate cultural transmissions abroad. And it has a lot of connection to Bourdieu's concept of social and cultural capital, since we are talking about cultural resources and making it known. And so basically you build trust with the others because you have a credibility within your value system, within your cultural production and social capital. However, that term was more about managing the international arena. What is more important for us, especially within our modern challenges, is the concept of how cultural diplomacy can be relevant to the national dimension. And for that, I would say that cultural diplomacy can seemingly provide a powerful range of benefits to the government and the country. It can raise the state's profile, contributes to nation branding, advance core interest, and connect with elite, mass, and diaspora. However, what is even more important than all that it is a tool that we can mobilize when we communicate people to people, whether on the national or the international arena. And Mark is not here today, so I'm going to talk about the model of cultural diplomacy, because this is how we can look at a case or any case of cultural diplomacy mobilizing culture or heritage. And it consists of 5 different components. The first is the context, and it's the most important one, where it's to understand the overall picture of the situation and comprehend integrally the socio-economic and cultural context of the community or society in which cultural diplomacy policies should be implemented. Then we have the agenda. And the agenda is about what exactly is going to be included in these activities, as any other agenda at the end. And then the agent, which is the choice of agent, determines who and what is going to take part in these activities. And then the vehicle, and that's where culture and heritage fits in perfectly, is about how the agenda will be presented by the agent. Is print, audiovisual, physical, heritage management, heritage experiences, or you name it. And then we have the target audience. For me, they are the best thing and the most important one, and I would always and highly recommend that no matter how important all these 5 things, I think we need to have our target audience as our leaders, as the one that are leading everything. Then we have to understand the context in order to see how we can help them achieve what they want to achieve, rather than come up with the agenda and then look at everything else, because it is important, if we want to deal with heritage and with culture, to be a bottom-up, to be a grassroots, and to have our audience as our leaders. I wouldn't call them audience, I would be like, they are the one that stimulates all my work actually so far. And it's not only me, but it's becoming now a common sense to start with the communities and with the target audience. So let's go now into more solid, concrete linkages and see like the relevance of heritage and cultural heritage to cultural diplomacy policies and achieving like soft power goals and objectives. There are many, but I also try to to make like solid few only. Um, First is facilitating people's interaction, diversity, and inclusion. Since culture is in general is initially seen as a channel for citizens' interaction and diversity inclusion, and cultural policy as carrying the function of enhancing citizenship. Well, it can also promote diverse ideas and encourage understanding of self and others. Engaging with culture and heritage expose people to diverse ideas and encourage understanding, as this experience provides a different way to comprehend the world around them. This provides people with different options for social action and relationships. This process then provides a greater understanding of one's own place in the world and of oneself, one's desire, and one's capabilities, in other words, one's identity. It can also enhance reflectiveness and empathy. Cultural heritage empowers the sense of belonging and identity formation, as we see from the values and identities, no? And meanings. When people have a better understanding of themselves and their place in the world, they can develop more empathy towards others and situations. Heritage then has a role in shaping reflective individuals, benefiting the whole community, and not only those individuals, as reflective members of community, can accept differences and be more socially engaged. People engaging with heritage-based experiences also go through a process through which they can create their own response and understanding, think and reflect about themselves and others. By going through this process, people can see the world from a different perspective and foresee possible future. It can also empower social cohesion and willingness to cooperate. In the search for social value, mobilizing cultural heritage, Stanley believes that the power of culture can assess social cohesion in shaping the willingness of people in a society to cooperate and achieve collective goals. Although he differentiates between networks of social connection as a social capital and social cohesion, Stanley still believes that social capital can empower social cohesion. And build upon that, he can see that Stanley builds upon the power of culture in building a shared understanding, stronger shared sense of belonging, as well as a sense of self, and increase people's willingness to cooperate. Culture and heritage, in this notion, increases the community capacity to act together and achieve mutual goals. It is important to comprehend these values as a non-direct impact of heritage and culture. I need to drink water. Okay. Engaging within a cultural heritage experience, it is a creative process by itself. No? So basically, it also can turn challenges to opportunities, because by engaging with cultural heritage as a creative process, this can provide alternative and diverse ways to view a challenge. This can help individuals and communities to deal with painful experiences and drama in a less stressful way and support alternative solutions. It can also bring social energy and mobility in addition to conflict resolution and peace building. Cultural expressions can be a tool for economic growth, employment, or social cohesion, or that it can provide inspiration for conflict resolution and peace building, or that it is also a potential fount on social energy and mobilization. There is a link between job creation and economic growth with the cultural and creative industries, or by looking at community cultural-based projects that generate social capital. Culture and heritage can participate in building peace as it processes different approaches to security and development policy and practices. There are many ways in which heritage can be useful in that process of peace building. as heritage and culture can give a voice to opposed and marginalized groups, reduce fear in public spaces. Also, cultural heritage can stimulate new ideas and approaches to solve existing problems non-violently, developing empathy within conflict-affected communities. In addition to that, art and culture has the power to generate employment and economic benefits, as we said. And also, it can bring diverse people together. Oko Kuo, I hope I said the name right, argues that culture can be considered a unifying force to bring together people from diverse backgrounds to agree on shared realities. He believes in mobilizing different forms of culture, like music as example, to shape or engineering societies. I think it's the last slide on relevance. I promise. Enhance individual and group opportunities as engaging in cultural heritage experiences manages to construct social and cultural capital. And cultural capital, as seen by Santakata, is a combination of cultural resources and networks that promotes cultural diversity. This discussion can be reflected on the social capital as well. People get into a dynamic that enhances relationships, partnership, and networks. It can also build and empower confidence, as engaging in cultural heritage experiences promote alternative ideas and encourage understanding of selves and others. This process then can empower self-confidence for individuals to be more engaged with their society, as engaging in cultural expressions can increase people's understanding of identity, group, and factors of change. And then we have empower social and cultural engagement. This is part of my actual studies, and that's why I'm going to talk about my professor, Macpherson et al., actually, which was Macpherson, my professor, and a group of us working on specific reports. We saw that and discussed the contribution that heritage and cultural programs can make to communities. They believe that therapy, reconciliation, and civil society strengthening the society, no? And they are amongst the main potentials of arts and culture to bring back stability and security in societies during or post-conflict. Community engagement, social cohesion, and voice, as well as agency, are part of the benefits of arts and culture programs to security and stability. Culture and heritage are initially seen as a channel for citizen interaction and diversity inclusion, and cultural policy as carrying the function of enhancing citizenship. Culture can promote grassroots processes to build reconciliation and connection within communities. Engaging in cultural experience can foster dialogue. Dialogue can lead to greater understanding. This leads to conflict resolution, as many conflict originates from misunderstanding and misinterpretation of the context. To conclude, yes, heritage is wonderful. Heritage is strong. Heritage has a lot of potentials. It is definitely socially constructed, related to people, and definitely has the power to make a change, and it has an impact on societies. But we need to remember that it is not the only factor that can work on that. We have, if we want to make a real difference, we have to pack heritage and culture with other factors of sustainability and for development, like talking about education, about job creation, economic growth, and other factors are also important. That's why soft power is amazing, but smart power can be even more effective. And also it's very, very relevant to realize the importance of approach when we want to deal with cultural heritage projects, because it should be grassroots, it should be bottom up. Otherwise, it can it can provide us with definitely the opposite of what we want. So it's very, very important. Again, the approach, should be grassroots, should be bottom up. Another factor that can limit the impact of heritage and culture is the narrow perspective of many organizations when dealing with culture in general or cultural heritage. And that can impact the whole cycle of the cultural management projects. So basically, we have to think, when we are thinking of that, to have more kind of an integral view or more strategical, more forward looking, because otherwise if we look at it, and also we need to think of culture and heritage not in a specific way and not in an exclusive way, so we can get the results that I was talking about. Bureaucracy, governance, legislations, and other characters, that can also limit a lot the possibilities of cultural heritage, like applying the red tide at 10 o'clock at night in Berlin. I'm sure gonna in the future stop the possibility of it to become like the cultural capital of Europe, because somehow when we want to think of these kind of things, we need to think of a flexibility, of possibility of change, of acceptance, of having something in the middle, and not to think and manage, as example, a capital that wants to position itself in the heart of the cultural scene, but with the rules that another capital that invests more on industry or in economics does. So basically also for culture and for heritage to thrive, they need more flexibility and more ability to change from that part. So basically that's it, and I would like to thank you for being patient with me all this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Yara,
You would
for
come.
this. First of all, I would like to know if time for questions or
Maybe just a few words about.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it, and I was reading, all the time. I just wanted to hear just your personal understandings about the heritage and its role as actualization that you mentioned. It's your favorite part of it.
Yeah, because basically I came into, I'm talking personal now, not,
Yes,
yeah? I came into the whole subject because I was always living in abroad. So I wanted to figure out what does it mean to be Syrian, and I couldn't find anything that could differentiate me from anybody else except that part, which was heritage and culture. And also culture, I would say not because I adapted a lot from my path. I mean, when I'm in Syria, people ask me where I am from, and it's difficult for them to figure out that I'm completely Syrian. But the heritage was the one that made me feel like I want to dig more, I want to read more. And as a little girl, my favorite subject was that, and basically I started my career as an archaeologist, not as a cultural heritage expert. The funny part that the minute I finished from the BA, I felt like I don't belong to the whole. Like, I've done my fantasy, searching, but I want to make sense of what people are excavating and finding, because I was also very bored when I go to museums, which was very much like, oh my God, I'm giving all my life to heritage and to archaeology, but then I go to a museum and I'm like, okay, when shall we go out? Like, okay, I do it and I put the pictures, I document it, but I want to run away. And apparently I just discovered that what's going on is that when you go to a museum, it might have a lot of valid, important information, but it doesn't give me this actualization, kind of. It doesn't tell me the story. It doesn't tell me why I exist, why I am the way I am now. And that's why I started the journey of discovering what shall I do in order to make sense of that. So the easiest path was to start. That's why I have so many masters, because I was searching. I didn't know what to do, and I'm like, maybe I should go to something in the middle. Let me go to history of art criticism, and I was also born in an artistic family, so basically that was easy because I accumulated the knowledge and the know-how. So I've done my master's in that on Syrian contemporary art, but on culture, on view of how much the modern art product in Syria is a continuous product of the history and not a result of the artists in the beginning 20th century coming to Europe and bringing the Western art back to Syria, kind of thing. But then I'm like, something is still itchy, like I still wanted to do something more in the heritage itself, and not only in the art. Actually, I am too difficult for me. I have two wings. I have art and I have heritage. I like both a lot. But that's where I went into cultural economics and how to bring it to this. Basically, this is how I went to cultural heritage studies, put it this way, and then also went from being an archaeologist to intangible heritage expert, because and then I felt like what I was caring about all my life was these stories rather than the monument or the artifact itself, the things that I excavate. And somehow in that process, I become stronger. And I become able to face my identity, the situation. I had more flexible view on our reality, and I made my turn back to Syria in 2009 as a result. Like, I mean, I was abroad, and then I made a reverse immigration back to my own country, just to figure out and to realize everything somehow. In a way, yes, I mean, the work came, but somehow if I didn't have all this, I wouldn't be strong enough now, put it this way. I mean, that helped me a lot to how to handle things and how to become like my ancestors, because Syria was always a kind of a hub where people comes and goes, and I'm sure that the history doesn't tell you about conflict, but I'm sure when you have a lot of this diversity that we see now, most probably there was an underlying layers of conflict and stuff. So basically, if they managed to manage it in the past, we have to manage it in the future. And that's also made me feel very optimistic, regardless of the chaotic situation in Syria, that we will get over it, like people-wise, and go forward in the future.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone? More questions? So I have a question.
Yeah,
as,
please.
as part of the audience. Did you, you are speaking and going out from the point that heritage is always a good thing and has always only good values. What happens when heritage has negative points, and actually heritage is the one which causing maybe isolation, maybe conflicts? When
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, is everything good and
No.
okay when cultural heritage is a good thing and is coming for a good thing, and when the actors are good actors, so to say. But in our world, there are also bad actors. You can misuse. You can create a heritage that maybe should not be the original heritage of, or as we see it, because there are also different views. What is heritage and what should be the heritage of this culture or another? So did you encounter these things throughout your research, or did you...
Yeah, thanks for this question, because I mean, I was thinking, but the time of the presentation couldn't let me go into that direction of heritage. I go back to the Faro Convention when it says it's a group of of resources, and think of it as a resource, like money.
Mm-hmm.
You can go and make the biggest NGO that can empower women in I don't know where with that amount of money, but you can also buy drugs and poison kids and ruin a whole generation with the same amount of money. So it's a resource. And the way you can mobilize this resource, and the same values, by the way, like even a good value here, if it was mobilized in a very nationalistic, isolative, and that's why I said managing heritage in a narrow perspective can get us into disasters.
Mm-hmm.
So also, it's not that we need to be selective about what we choose, but it's also a heritage of choice. So basically also like our modernity, what represents a modern Syrian or a modern German or a modern, you need to create, to choose the values that you want from the past.
And who is choosing that? Who is deciding?
The people.
The collective?
I mean, I am with the two ways. Like I talked about the grassroots, all the time, but also in the way you manage the grassroots. You have to bring them. I give you an example. I worked on an archaeological site in northeast Syria where Arabs and Kurds are together, and there was no such a conflict as armed conflict, but there was social conflict. There was a lot of layers in terms of social classes, in terms of Arab Kurds ethnic differences, and not much of trust was there between them, but they had the shared archaeological site. No? And at the beginning, when we entered to do kind of cultural heritage-based community development project, the Arabs were telling me, yeah, but the school is in with the Kurds area, I'm not going to send my kids. And the Kurds were telling me, yeah, but the Arabs, actually, they don't belong here. They came after there was a dam and their land was flooded. So they came in here and they are not part of us, and we're not going to send our kids to their schools. And it was like that. And with us bringing a specific technique, talking about the archaeological side, talking about the values that they do and deal with on a daily basis, and bringing bread towards sending their kids, and kind of stuff like this, they figured out with time that they have a lot in common, and that you can manage their heritage, which was shared because they belong to the place, both of them, and that archaeological site was a kind of the place that combined them, because it was where like, okay, we don't need to be different. We even have heritage to share together, and the possibility in the future. So you need it's more in the policies. It's more in the tools, rather than about the heritage itself. It can be a wonderful thing, but the history shows us horrible examples of how heritage can be managed in a bad way to make even criminal acts and Holocaust, and you call it what you call it, but yes, heritage can be very, very dark as well. Plus we have the whole like also managing black heritage, like managing memories and managing hard memories, managing the destruction of Palmyra, and we need to be very careful on how to deal with that, because it's going to impact the society whether in a positive or in a negative way, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any more questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
so thank you for your wonderful speech. I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
So talking about heritage is really a very good topic. And if you want to look at the Middle East today, I like the fact that you're from Syria. If you want to look at the Middle East today, heritage is a major problem. Especially taking into account a country like Israel, Palestine. Today, Jerusalem was made a corporate separatum as a result of heritage. So how would you naturally say we should use heritage as a good tool for soft power, or as a good vehicle to drive soft power?
I mean, the whole presentation was talking about that in general. Do you have a specific, like?
Okay, now
Actually, I think that's what she answered me. Actually, she said.
No, I'm coming because
Yeah.
basically I'm talking in relation to a case like Israel and Palestine today. We
Yeah.
want to find out about Jerusalem. Actually, the entire problem between Israel and Palestine is as a result of cultural heritage. When we talk about issues in Jerusalem, whereby some historical sites, or talk about it's an Arab site, it's
UNESCO deals with it
Partially,
as Jerusalem.
yes.
Yes.
Consider it Jerusalem. It doesn't belong to any. It
Or
belongs
belongs to all.
no, to any and all, exactly,
Yeah.
because the UNESCO is a good example of how they manage it. Just have a look at the way they deal with it. It's like really, they are not putting it within any territory, and they have like, it become like the place itself and the heritage itself has a kind of hegemony on every other differences. So basically, that would, I didn't work on there. I can't tell you more on how that, and actually, to be frank, I didn't get into that, but I know that the UNESCO way of managing Jerusalem is a very unique, it's the only place actually. The whole other World Heritage sites are managed within the Syrian World Heritage sites, the Lebanese World Heritage sites, except of Jerusalem. It has a whole completely different way of managing it.
Autonomously.
Yeah. Yeah.
That shows you that the conflict is not only about the cultural heritage.
Yeah.
Because if you would have looked at it only from cultural heritage, it would have been solved. But it's not only about that. So
Yeah.
actually cultural heritage can help with that. When the feeling to belonging that, it belongs to all of us together. But because it's not only cultural heritage,
Yeah.
but many other
Very valid point,
issues
yeah.
and values, so
Very valid,
this
yeah.
why it's a part of the reason that it's still unsolved.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Yara.
Thank you.